You know that moment when you're lying in bed at night and suddenly your brain decides this is the perfect time to replay a conversation from days ago? Something small, something almost meaningless. Maybe the way you worded a sentence, maybe the look on someone's face after you said something, maybe a text you haven't replied to. Now a puzzle your mind insists you solve before resting. Part of you knows it's ridiculous. You know you shouldn't be spending this much energy on it, but your mind keeps going anyway. Psychology shows that this habit, which we casually call overthinking, quietly damages your life in ways most people never notice. Overthinking rarely feels destructive in the moment. It usually feels responsible, careful, like preparation. Like you're protecting yourself from mistakes, embarrassment, or losing control of situations that already feel uncertain. That's why so many people stay trapped in overthinking for years without realizing what it's costing them: energy, focus, peace, and even simple joy. Because overthinking isn't just thinking a lot, it's mental looping. Your mind keeps returning to the same unresolved thought, the same imagined scenario, the same fear, not because it's moving toward clarity, but because it's trying to create a sense of certainty life cannot offer. The goal isn't understanding. The goal is relief. Your brain is trying to think its way out of discomfort, but instead of finding peace, it usually creates more noise. Think about how often this happens. Someone takes longer than usual to reply to your message. That's all that happened, but your mind begins building a whole emotional documentary around it. Did you say something wrong? Are they upset? Are they losing interest? Did your last message sound weird? Should you send another one? Should you leave it? Should you pretend you don't care? Within minutes, a tiny moment becomes mentally exhausting, not because it's serious, but because your brain treats uncertainty like danger. And it doesn't stop there. Overthinking shows up in your work, your finances, your future, even simple decisions. Something that should take 5 minutes can take hours or days because your brain insists there must be a perfect choice hidden somewhere if you just think harder. But here's the reality. Overthinking rarely has anything to do with perfection. It usually has more to do with fear. Fear of regret, failure, rejection, or being the kind of person who should have known better. Analysis feels safer than action, so your mind keeps you suspended. This is where overthinking quietly destroys life, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle, cumulative ones. It steals your ability to be present. It turns simple decisions into emotional weight. It drains energy from moments that were meant to be lived, not endlessly examined. You can be in a room full of people and still be mentally stuck in a conversation from yesterday. You can be doing something enjoyable and feel half absent because your brain is somewhere else, solving a problem that doesn't exist yet. There's psychology behind why overthinking leaves you drained. Your brain is not designed to hold dozens of unresolved possibilities at once. Every replay, prediction, rehearsal, or analysis consumes cognitive energy. It's like having too many tabs open at the same time. Eventually, everything slows down. Focus weakens. Emotions feel heavier. Small things feel harder than they should. And most people don't even realize that the reason they feel exhausted is that their mind has been running a marathon all day. Overthinking often disguises itself as self-awareness. I'm just reflecting. I'm just being careful. I'm trying to understand myself better. Reflection is healthy. Self-awareness is healthy. Reflection leads to insight, clarity, and growth. Overthinking just circles. It keeps you mentally active without emotionally resolving anything. Hours spent thinking can leave you less clear than when you started. This mental pattern affects your relationship with yourself. The more you overthink, the less you trust your instincts. You second-guess everything, not just big decisions, but small ones too. What you said, how you looked, whether a reaction was normal, whether silence meant something, whether your instincts were valid, or whether you're just being dramatic. After a while, this creates a painful internal environment where even your own thoughts don't feel safe. Your mind stops feeling like home. It starts feeling like a place you're constantly trying to survive in. Overthinking is often a form of emotional self-protection. If you can stay in your head, you can delay sitting fully with your feelings. Sometimes your mind would rather obsess than grieve. It would rather analyze than admit it's hurt. It would rather rehearse every possible future than acknowledge the helplessness or uncertainty you feel right now. So instead of experiencing sadness, rejection, confusion, disappointment, or fear, your brain converts it all into thought, endless thought. Thoughts feel manageable. Emotions feel messier, less controllable, more vulnerable. And this is why overthinking can become strangely addictive, not enjoyable obviously, but familiar. Your brain uses it as a coping mechanism. When something uncomfortable happens, it goes into overdrive. Let's figure this out. Let's solve this. Let's understand every angle before anything bad happens. But the irony is, the more your mind tries to rescue you, the more trapped you often become. Life doesn't get easier when you overanalyze, it just gets louder. One of the most damaging things overthinking does is make you believe peace is something you have to earn through mental effort. If you think long enough, eventually your brain will reward you with certainty, but that reward almost never comes. Uncertainty is part of being human, not a problem to solve. The more you resist it, the more exhausted you become. Some of the people who overthink the most are not intelligent or weak. They're highly perceptive, sensitive, deeply aware of consequences, tone shifts, social nuance, and future possibilities. Their minds are active because they notice a lot. The problem is, they never stop carrying what they notice. Overthinking starts becoming a nervous system overload. Your body pays for your mind's activity. You feel restless when nothing is wrong, tense in quiet moments, struggle to sleep because your inner world gets louder when external stimulation disappears. Chest feels heavy, attention fragmented. You reach for distractions, not from laziness, but because being alone with your mind no longer feels restful. It feels like entering a room where every unfinished thought waits for you. Here's something most people need to hear. Overthinking doesn't always mean you care more. Sometimes it just means you're carrying more than you were meant to carry alone. There's a difference between being thoughtful and being consumed. One helps you understand life, the other disconnects you from life. If you've been in this pattern for a long time, you may not even realize how much energy is lost to imagined conversations, hypothetical disasters, invisible social pressure, and internal debates no one else sees. This also affects your relationships, not because you don't care, but because your mind turns connection into pressure. You read too much into texts, you overanalyze tone, you assume distance before it's confirmed, you mentally prepare for rejection before anyone rejects you. You're reacting not to reality, but to a fear-filtered version of it. Even healthy relationships feel unstable inside your head. If this sounds familiar, it doesn't mean you're broken. Your inner world has been running without rest for too long. Overthinking often begins as an attempt to stay safe, avoid mistakes, reduce pain, or prevent loss. But unchecked, it stops protecting your life and starts consuming it. From the outside, no one always sees it. People think you're quiet, in your head, or indecisive. They don't see the constant internal noise, the replaying, predicting, and self-correcting. That's why many overthinkers feel isolated. Not physically, but mentally unseen. The deeper truth is that overthinking steals not just your peace, but your trust. Trust in yourself, your instincts, and the idea that uncertainty doesn't always need full investigation. Thinking is not bad, but when it becomes your primary coping mechanism, you lose the ability to simply be without managing everything mentally. So if this feels familiar, understand this. Overthinking is not a call for more answers. It's often a sign your mind has been seeking safety where it cannot be found. Recognizing that can be surprisingly relieving. Once you see overthinking not as wisdom, preparation, or emotional maturity, but as a tired mind trying too hard to avoid pain, you relate to yourself differently. And sometimes that's where change quietly begins. Not in forcing yourself to be perfectly calm overnight, not in fixing every thought, but in noticing the hidden pattern beneath the noise, the part that shows your mind was trying to protect you by keeping you alert, busy, prepared, and one step ahead of life, even at the cost of peace. Once you see that, you start noticing something important. Not every thought deserves energy. Not every fear deserves obedience. Not every uncertainty deserves a full investigation. Clarity doesn't always come from thinking more. Sometimes it comes from finally understanding when your mind has already done enough. And once you see that, you start seeing life differently.